Hello everyone! Today we're going to be covering the Windows Threat Detection 3 Premium Room from TryHackMe. We're going to learn how threat actors manage to maintain access to the breached Windows host. So let's get started with Task 1 Introduction. Also, my name is Joshua Spishak. I'm a cybersecurity analyst and Blue Team content creator. So let's get started with Task 1 Introduction. Alright, what if attackers aren't satisfied with just breaching the host but aim to stay, establish control, and use the system as a starting point for future operations? This room completes your Windows Threat Detection journey and explores how a compromised host can become a part of a larger attack, focusing on 3 tactics: command and control, persistence, and impact. If you don't know what those 3 are, don't worry. Let me give you guys a brief introduction and overall explanation. So let's go to MITRE ATT&CK. Also, if you don't know what MITRE ATT&CK is, let me explain. MITRE ATT&CK is a globally accessible knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques based on real-world observations. Also, ATT&CK is open and available to any person or organization for use at no charge. So, with that information, if you wanted to get a better understanding of adversary tactics and techniques based on real observations, that is completely free. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is a really great resource, and I highly recommend bookmarking it. Here's the URL to do that. Now, pertaining to our task and overall room, let's learn about command and control, persistence, and impact. Let's go to MITRE ATT&CK. Look up command and control. Look up, I believe, yes, command and control and persistence. Awesome. And also, the MITRE ATT&CK framework continues to be updated and maintained as well. So let's go with command and control. Yes. So brief explanation, command and control. The adversary is trying to communicate with compromised systems to control them. Command and control consists of techniques that adversaries may use to communicate with systems under their control within a victim network. Additionally, adversaries commonly attempt to mimic normal, expected traffic to avoid detection. There are many ways an adversary can establish command and control, with various levels of stealth depending on the victim's network structure and defenses. Also, to define tactics and techniques, think of tactics as the what, and the techniques is the how, such as command and control would be a tactic because that's what the adversary is trying to do. Techniques is how the adversary would do command and control, such as, for example, content injection, and much, much more. Now, persistence. Persistence is when the adversary is trying to maintain their foothold, such as persistence consists of techniques that adversaries use to keep access to systems across restarts, change credentials, and other interruptions that can cut off their access. Techniques used for persistence include any access, action, or configuration changes that let them maintain their foothold on systems, such as replacing or hijacking legitimate code or adding startup code. And finally, impact. Open a new tab. Awesome. Alright, impact is when the adversary is trying to manipulate, interrupt, or destroy your systems and data. Impact consists of techniques that adversaries use to disrupt availability or compromise integrity by manipulating business and operational processes. Techniques used for impact can include destroying or tampering with data. In some cases, business processes can look fine, but may have been altered to benefit the adversary's goals. And these techniques might be used by adversaries to follow through on their end goal or to provide cover for a confidentiality breach. So now that we have an understanding of command and control, persistence, and impact, let's go back to task 1. And moving on. Here's the learning objectives. We're going to remind the concept of command and control. We're going to learn why and how threat actors maintain control of their victims. And we're going to use Windows event logs to uncover various persistent methods. And finally, we're going to see how the learned techniques work in a hands-on environment. Here's some prerequisites here. Additionally, I have walkthroughs on my YouTube page for the Windows Threat Detection 1 and 2 rooms, but also the Windows Login for SOC room as well. So just check out my YouTube channel, JOSHUA space SPSHOCK, and you will see the YouTube video walkthroughs for the Windows Login for SOC, Windows Threat Detection 1, and Windows Threat Detection 2, and eventually Windows Threat Detection 3 rooms. Happy to help. Also, we're going to be ready to dive deeper into the last stages of Windows attacks. Alright, now lab access. Before moving forward, start the lab by clicking the Start Lab Machine button below. So let's do that. And the VM will open in split view, which we can see here, and will need about 2 minutes to fully load. In case the VM is not visible, you can click the Show Split View button at the top of the page, and all machine data details can be found at the top of the page. Can we see here? Alright, alternatively, you can access the VM from your own VPN connected machine with the credentials below, such as username, password, IP address. Once the IP address is shown, you'll see it here. Connection via RDP. Awesome. Alright. Alright, let's go. Alright, give it some time to load. Alright, here you see our IP address. So if you wanted to access the VM from your own VPN connected machine, here's the credentials and the IP address, the connection type. Alright. No answer needed. Let's go. And now let's move on to task 2, command and control. Alright. Command and control. You already learned that USB worms and phishing attachments can affect the machine, but how do they do it exactly? How do threat actors send the commands and keep control of the victim's host? This task will shed light on this topic and explore the command and control C2 miner tactic, which we've already discussed. But just for a brief explanation, command and control is when the adversary is trying to communicate with compromised systems to control them. Also, command and control consists of techniques that adversaries may use to communicate with systems under their control within a victim network. Awesome. Now we got our machine on the right. Hopefully it stays up. Alright. Attacks without C2. In some cases, C2 is not needed at all. For example, threat actors can type their commands directly in the RDP session after an RDP breach. And since this method becomes unavailable as soon as RDP is closed or secured, most threat actors choose to still set up a C2 immediately after the breach. Alright, now simply as C2. For other initial access methods, threat actors can't simply use RDP every time they need to run a command. So they need some process that connects back to the attackers and waits for the commands 24/7. In the simplest case, the phishing attachment will be that process and establish the command and control channel, like on the Cobalt Strike C2 screenshot below right here. In more advanced cases, the attachment won't immediately connect back, but rather download an additional C2 malware, hide it in a folder like ctempt, and run it as a new stealthy process. This method is beneficial to keep the attack going if the victim decides to delete the original attachment. You can see how it worked in the recent ransomware cases, which you can see here, and during the EP29 phishing campaign. So if you wanted to learn more about that, here are your URLs. A lot of great stuff. Great information. Sweet. Yeah, highly recommend checking this out. And also, yes, we can see here, a Trello from the other side tracking APT29 phishing campaigns. So if you wanted to learn more about how the attachment won't immediately connect back, but rather download an additional C2 malware, hide it in a folder like ctempt, and run it as a new stealthy process method, highly recommend checking out this resource and this one as well. Sweet. Alright, for this task, we're going to access the attached VM, which is on the right, and detect the C2 setup using sysmon logs. And we're going to use the C users administrator desktop practice task 2 sysmon.evtx log a file, which is going to be event logs, because this is the file extension. So let's go answer some questions. Which suspicious archive does the user download? So that's you practice. Task 2, sysmon.evtx. It's gonna be fun. Awesome. We should let it load. Let it load. Oh, it's not responding. Wonderful. Let me try again. There we go. Sometimes it can be wonky. Alright, before I discuss about the event logs and overall event IDs, let me show you guys a really helpful resource to help you better understand the material. So, if you haven't seen me cover this resource already, don't worry. Let me explain what it is. So, the Windows-forensics-reference.com website contains self-contained, offline capable DFI reference pages for Windows artifact analysis. Awesome. You can download any tool as a single HTML file and use it anywhere. So, pertaining to our task, if we wanted to learn more about sysmon event IDs, we have a reference. Awesome. And in here, we can learn more about like the event IDs such as process 1, event ID 1 for process create, 2 for file creation time change, 3 for network connection, 11 for file created, and I believe 22 is DNS. Yes, 22 is DNS query. So if you wanted a really helpful resource to help you better understand sysmon event IDs, highly recommend checking out the Windows-forensics-reference.com website, and then after that, clicking on the sysmon event ID reference page. It will take you here. Now so you can maximize it to learn more, such as forensic value, investigation notes. You can also see key event fields, noise level, default state, and config and tuning notes, attack techniques, and references. Awesome. Additionally, with every resource that I use, all credit goes to the author of this amazing page. So, an overall resource. So, highly recommend checking out the GitHub, and all credit goes to the author. Awesome. All right. So, with that information, which suspicious archive did the user download? So let's first sort this by ascending so that we can see the first event. All right, and then let's go look at file. Since we're talking about user download, we need to look for a file. Let's see, downloads. Yeah, downloads. Let me just make it easier on the eyes. There we go. All right, downloads. We got temp, 15, file stream. We're getting close. File stream. Downloads. Ooh, we see that the user used Edge for an update. Then we see a suspicious archive. Downloads urgent. And then if we check again, urgent.lnk. But since we're looking for archive, we want to look for zip. And just to clarify, I have completed this room already, but don't worry. I'm going to walk you through my problem-solving methodology, so that way you better understand how I got the answer. So let's keep looking. LNK. PowerShell. Alright, so I'm seeing urgent. And let me just go. Okay. Alright, so let's look on urgent. Did the user download? Okay. So let's find, look at urgent. Perfect. Alright, there we go. Urgent.zip. And we can clarify that is a archive because this one there. Okay, let me make this one the event ID reference. Right, cool. All right, file stream created mark of the web. What this means is that the forensic value and investigation notes, download and phishing delivery detection, zone identifier streams prove a file was downloaded from the internet, which you want to see, versus internal network versus local. In the contents field includes the referral URL and host URL, which is the exact URL the file was downloaded from, and the hash enables threat intel. In the absence of zone.identifier on a known downloaded file, indicates mark of the web bypass. So if you wanted to learn more about download and phishing delivery, and also to prove a file was downloaded from the internet, this event ID is going to be really, really helpful. So let's go look, and we should see referral URL in here. Yes, we see the hash urgent.zip. I believe this is going to be our archive. This looks like our archive. Yes, I'm going to say it is. As we see file creation downloads, we see a file was downloaded, and then we see our urgent.zip. So I'm going to say this is the answer. But to clarify, is a suspicious file that has the .zip extension, an example of an archive file. I believe that's what you want to see. Or example of an archive. It could provide examples of other file extensions that would prove the file is an archive. Awesome. All right, cool. Yes, a file with a, there we go. All right. Yes, a file with a .zip extension is a definite example of an archive file. And what are archive files? Archive files combine multiple individual files and folders into a single package, usually compressing the data to reduce overall file size. And here are some common archive file extensions such as .rar, .7z, .tar, .gz, .bz2, .iso, and .cap. And here's the security warning. Because archive files can hide malicious executable programs like .exe, .bat, or .scr files from basic security scans, attackers frequently use them to deliver malware. So please avoid opening or extracting suspicious archive files from unknown sources. All right. So now that we have this information, and we see that yes, a file with a .zip extension is a definitive example of an archive file. Let's see if our file named urgent.zip is our answer. Awesome. All right, next. Where did the attackers hide the C2 malware file? So let's go see where they hid it. So let's go see. We see next. We see downloads zip. We see file streams. Downloads. So I see downloads. They are going to be downloads. Which is good to see though. File creation. What is this? LNK. We see that there was a link file, so that means the file has to be another location. Link. Download. Link. Ooh, I see PowerShell. I see a target file name C users administrator roaming update.exe. Alright, so the file creation. Role name.exe. Alright, so now that I see that there is a lot of urgent LNK zip. So this is our zip. So when the user probably hid the malware file, which was probably update.exe, it's going to be in app data roaming. Nice. Sweet. All right, cool. We got it. C users administrator app data roaming update.exe, which you can see here. File creation. Yes, because it mentions here that Attackers like to hide the malware in a folder like ctemp, which we can see here, and then run it as a new stealthy process, which in this case is update.exe. Awesome. All right, next. What is the domain of the command and control server? So since we're talking about domain, let's filter on event ID 22, because that's going to show us DNS query events. So let's type in 22. Oh, we only got one. Nice. And our domain is going to be route.m365officesync.workers.dev. And we can see our malware file path right here. So this checks out. Sweet. All right, next. Task 3, persistence overview. Data stealer infections usually have a very short lifespan. They breach the victim, collect the data, exfiltrate it, and exit all within minutes. However, for most other attacks, maintaining access to the victim for days or even months after the initial access is vital. The tactic of maintaining reliable long-term access to the target that can survive reboots and password changes is called persistence. A big and interesting topic that you will discover soon. And also, if you want to learn more about the persistence spider attack, I have the URL right here. And what persistence is that the adversary is trying to maintain their foothold. Additionally, persistence consists of techniques that adversaries use to keep access to systems across restarts, change credentials, and other interruptions that could cut off their access. And finally, techniques used for persistence include any access, action, or configuration changes that them maintain their foothold on systems, such as replacing or hijacking legitimate code or adding startup code. Nice. And we can see here how persistence is done. Example. Nice. Cool. All right. Persisting via RDP. Many Windows breaches happen because of the exposed service, RDP with a weak password, a vulnerable mail server, or a misconfigured web app. For such scenarios, the threat actors can access the machine via the same exposed service over and over again until the vulnerability is fixed. Still, threat actors often deploy an additional persistence method. For example, they create an additional hidden vulnerability in the breach service, they create a new user, make it an administrator, and use it for further RDP logins. If you want us to learn more about these, I believe it's going to be more MITRE ATT&CK. Awesome, it is. So you want to learn more, highly recommend checking out these resources. Very nice. All right, next. Let's focus on the second method now and see how you or threat actors can manage users on Windows. The first option is to use the graphical utility by searching for computer management or by launching LUS rmgr.msc. The second option is to use a command line, like an example below right here, such as there's two methods to create the Mr. Backdoor user, which we can see here, with command and PowerShell. We can also see there's two methods to add the user to administrators. So first in this, there is two examples to create the user. And then in the second example, we learn how to add this user, Mr. Backdoor, to the administrators group, such as local group administrators Mr. Backdoor /add, or PowerShell add dash local group member administrators dash member the user that was created. All right. Detecting backdoor users. It's time to go back to the security event logs. Yay! Every user creation event is logged as security event ID 4720, which you explored in the Windows Login for SOC room. Since threat actors can be very creative with naming the backdoor accounts, you should not rely just on detecting suspicious names like hacker, but rather investigate, such as who created the account, what is the source IP and time of the creator's login, is it expected, which other suspicious events can you see in the creator's session. Are now making users privileged. Next, A new user by itself won't give the attacker much, as the default user permissions do not allow remote RDP logins or grant administrative privileges on the machine. To overcome. Come on, you're connected to the remote machine. Please work. Awesome. Alright, to overcome this, threat actors will add their backdoor account to one of their privileged groups, which is tracked by security event ID 4732. And the most commonly exploited groups are administrators and remote desktop users. Alright, next, resetting passwords. Lastly, in more advanced cases, threat actors may simply reset the password of some old or unused account and use it instead of creating a new one. You can detect it with security event ID 4724. In the summary below, which you can see here, you can see how the described event IDs look like, such as 4720, a user account was created. 4732, a member was added to a security group. And 4724, an attempt to reset an account's password. Also, let me show you guys an overall showcase, a really helpful resource. So back to the awesome Windows-forensics-reference.com website. There's also a reference page for Windows security event IDs. So if you wanted to learn more about like account logon, event IDs, account management, which we are discussing about, such as 4720, a user account was created, you can expand this and it will give you more information about like investigation notes, category, subcategory, minimum OS, event verb, and other references as well. So like I said, this is a really awesome resource and it's very comprehensive. So highly recommend checking it out. And all these resources are completely free as well. And also we have Sigma detection rules, which is really, really cool. So wanted to shout that out as well. Yee. Alright. Here's our event IDs, descriptions, and what they look like in the logs. Alright, for this task, try to detect a persistence via the backdoor user account. So we're going to use task 3 security.evtx. So we use task 1, which was sysmon.evtx. So in this case, we're going to use, for task 3, security.evtx. So let's open that. Let's go to desktop, practice, task 3. Yes. That just make it easy and call it security. Alright, date and time. I want to see the earliest events, not the latest. There we go. Alright. Next, how many times did the threat actor fail to log in to the administrator? So since we're talking about failed login events, let's look at account logon. And I believe it is going to be, log on and log out. There we go. 4625 is going to be our event ID for an account failed to log on. So let's go look at that. Let's filter by event ID 4625. And then I believe all these are going to be administrator. Let's see. Not urgent. Reconnecting to your own machine. I was close. Come on. Trader. Okay, cool. You see account failed to log in. Alright, I see. I'm just gonna get details. There we go. Administrator. Login type 3. Alright, how many? Alright, so I need to figure out how many times did the threat actor fail to log in to administrator. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 6 events, so that's going to be our answer. Because with 4625, we can see failed login events, and we see that the attacker or threat actor was trying to log in as administrator. All right, now, after the successful logon, which backdoor user did the attacker create? So instead of 4625, let's go look for 4720, because that's going to show us account creation events. And we see that the account that was created was support. Awesome. All right, next. Which privileged group was the backdoor user added to? I believe that's going to be 4732. Nice. All right, so let's now look at 4732 events. And we can see two of them. So let's see what our user that was created, which is our backdoor user support. Let's see what privileged group it was added to. Let's see. Username. Turn name, users, subject name. What? There we go. That's our user support. So I believe they're added to. What were they added to? Built-in. Oh, account name, administrator. So they were added to the administrator group. Subject username. So the administrator created the account, and then the group name. Here we go. You see the backdoor user, and the group that this backdoor user was added to is administrators. Awesome. All right, next. Task 4, persistence, tasks, and services. All right, malware persistence. Persistence via a backdoor user works well if you can remotely log into it via RDP. But if the attack started through a phishing attack or USB infection, that's not an option. For these scenarios, threat actors need an actively running malware that maintains a connection with their C2 server even after a system reboot. So how can they achieve malware persistence? They can do it through services and tasks. Unfortunately for defenders, there are literally 100 or more methods to persist on a Windows machine. As a SOC level 1 or level 2 analyst, you don't need to know all of them, but let's start with the two common ones, which can be listed below. And we can see these two persistence methods, such as create a Windows service, which runs after OS startup, or create a scheduled task, which runs after OS startup. We can see the attack examples and event ID logging as well. Nice. All right, now detecting services. Many critical Windows components like DNS client or security center are services. You can view services by launching services.msc or searching for services, but you need administrative privileges in the sc.exe command to create or modify one. Threat actors can create their own malicious services that will run the specified program on startup, and they do it very often. As you can read in the MITRE examples. Procedure examples. MITRE attack framework is awesome. Highly recommend checking this out. Yee. Alright, in logs, you can detect malicious services in 3 ways. You can detect the launch of the sc.exe create command via sys1 event ID. You can detect service creation via security event ID 4697 or sys1 event or system event ID 7045. And we can detect suspicious processes with a services.exe parent process, which we can see here. Nice. All right, now detecting tasks. Scheduled tasks are another Windows feature heavily used by both the OS and external apps to check for updates or make a backup every hour. From the GUI, graphical user interface, you can manage tasks by launching task schd.msc or searching for task scheduler. From the command line, you can use the scheduled schtask.exe command. And unlike services, scheduled tasks are very easy to configure and hide, which is why they are the most common persistent method by threat actors, like in these AP28 and APT41 attacks. Similar to services, you can detect scheduled tasks in 3 ways. You can detect the launch of the schtask.exe create command via sys1 event ID 1, process creation events. You can detect and analyze scheduled task creation events via security event ID 4698, scheduled task creation events, and we can also detect suspicious processes with a svc host.exe, this, Dash S schedule parent, which you can see here. Nice. All right. The attackers left two back doors and restarted the system. Can you uncover them all using security and sysmon logs? Yes, we can. So let's do open. Instead of task 3, we're going to go to task 4. And I believe it's both of them, so can I do both? Alright, let me just do security all the time. And then let me get the other one. This is fun. I believe it's this one. Alright, here is our task 4. Yes. EV-text files. Alright. Which Windows service was created to persist the Nessie malware? Let's go look here. And we want to see created to persist the Nessie malware. Alright, let's first sort by ascending events. I want to see the earliest. Awesome. And I want to see service events. I believe it's going to be service creation. It's going to be security event ID 4697 or system event ID 7045. So let's go look at that. 4697. Oh, open. Okay. And then let's find Nessie. Nice. Service was installed on the system. See Windows Help Nessie. And we can see the service name is Data Protection Service. Awesome. Alright, next. Which scheduled task was created to persist the Troy malware? So now let's look at 4698. It's going to be scheduled task creation events. And let's try to find Troy so that we can figure out which scheduled task was created to persist the Troy malware. So instead of Nessie, let's type in Troy. Last one. Nice. It is going to be Amazon Sync. And we can see the task creation events, scheduled task creation events here. Very nice. All right, so our answer is going to be, and we can see here, Troy.exe. So this is our malware. And the task name is going to be Amazon Sync. Sweet. All right, what flag do you get after finding and running the Troy malware? So we can see that the Troy malware was in, I believe it was in, okay, so let's go to C, program files, check again, program files, common files, Troy.exe. Parent command line. What? Let me see. I have. Let me see if I remember. Detection. I remember. Let me just double check my steps. 1 second. This is going to be malware. Since we're talking about the malware, the parent process is going to be this, because we see that a service was created or scheduled task. Yeah, you can see a scheduled task. And then the next is going to be this schedule, and then malware.exe. So in this case, it's going to be Troy.exe, and the parent process is going to be this. So we're going to type that as our answer. So we're going to type that C Windows System 32 svc host.exe -k net services -p -s schedule. And that's our flag. DHM C2 is on schedule. Awesome. Our next, task 5, persistence, run keys, and startup. Alright, run keys and startup. Services and scheduled tasks are typically run on system boot and require administrative privileges to configure. However, what if a program has to run only when a specific user logs in? For such cases, Windows provides a few per-user persistence methods that are actively used by both legitimate tools and malware. So we can see the persistent methods here, the attack examples, and event ID logging. We're going to make it easier on the eyes. Alright, detecting startup. The startup folder. The startup folder was meant to be an easy way for inexperienced users to configure programs to run on login. You simply open the startup folder, move your program or program shortcut there, and see it automatically starts upon your future logins. You can access your startup folder via the path below, which we can see here, or for all users, this file path. The startup folder is not a common choice for legitimate programs, so usually the folder is empty. Still, threat actors often put their malware there. You can see an example here. We also observe persistence being established through the startup folder. The following command creates a .url file shortcut in the Windows startup folder, ensuring that the script healthpulse.url runs on startup, and we can see the information here. So I recommend checking this out. And also, you can detect it by monitoring file creation events, system event ID 11, inside the startup folder. Also, note that the programs launched via startup will have an explorer.exe parent, so it may be hard to differentiate them from legitimate user activity or attacks you learned in Windows Threat Detection 1. And if you want to learn more about that room, I have a YouTube walkthrough for this on my YouTube channel, but also here is the room itself and the tasks and overall concepts. So, highly recommend checking out my walkthrough, but also checking out the Windows Threat Detection 1 room as well. Alright, next. Alright, now detecting run keys. We can also see a screenshot here. Awesome. Alright, detecting run keys. Run key persistence is very similar to the startup folder. They even share a single MITRE technique. So you can see here. Boot or log on auto start execution, registry run keys startup folder. And if I go to the Windows forensic reference, we should have MITRE attack mentioned. I believe it's mentioned. Persistence, privilege, use, all events. Or is it going to be Linux? I believe it is the Linux one that takes us to the MITRE attack reference. Because I remember persistence was covered. Yes, persistence right here. So this is going to be your persistence mechanisms. And they also pertain to Windows as well. And you can learn more about the MITRE attack framework right here by clicking on the task. We can see here. Like I said, highly recommend checking out the MITRE attack framework and also the Windows-forensic-reference.com website, Linux, and Windows. Linux, and any of the Windows. Oh, and did I mention it's completely free? Open source? Not open source. Oh, yes. All tools are open source and free to use. Really awesome resource. EE. Our next. To view... Okay, my bad. The only major difference is how the entries are added there. Instead of just copying the program to the startup folder, you need to create a new value in the Run Windows registry and put the path to your program there, which we can see here. And to view the run entries, you can launch the regedit.exe file or executable, or search for registry editor and go to the path shown above. You can see here. And to detect the malicious entry from logs, you can monitor registry change events since find event ID 13 affecting the run keys. Alright, so now we're going to use all the tools you know to uncover the newly learned backdoors. So now we're going to look at task 5. Well, can I open new files? Right, open save log. Task 4. Now we're going to task 5. To reboot. Okay, let me just do before reboot. And then let's do open save log, task 5 after reboot. Yes. It's going to be, and we can see the logs here. All right, so before reboot, after reboot, is task 5's event log files. All right, first, what is the parent process image of the Odin malware? So since we're talking about malware files, let's filter by event ID. Let me do before reboot. Let me sort this by earliest. Here we go. Sysmon event ID 11. Ah, nice. Parent process. Ah, we see Odin. And our file. Parent process, actually. It is going to be command.exe. Now they want explorer.exe, so what if I do not filter by 11 and just try to find Odin? Next. Okay, so it's only one. What if I do after reboot? Find Odin. Ah, I see PowerShell. Command. PowerShell. PowerShell.exe. Command.exe. Startup. Odin.cmd. Parent image. Parent process ID. Parent image. I'm getting CMD for some reason. Oh, because I believe CMD, here we go, command line, Odin. So original file name is cmd.exe, and then we can see command line. Then we see for parent image, see Windows Explorer.exe. There we go. All right, cool. Explorer.exe, nice. All right, what is the last line that the Odin malware outputs? So let's run that. I believe we can just copy this and run it. All right, cool. So I need to go to C Windows, System 32, go to Startup, and then Odin. All right, so C, Users, Administrator, App Data, Roaming, I believe it's Microsoft. All right, Microsoft, Windows, Start Menu, Programs. Let's see if I have it right. Yes, Programs, there we go. Odin, doing bad stuff. Done doing bad stuff. Hey, you went by fast. Oh, there we go, done doing bad stuff. Nice. All right, what flag do you get after finding and running the kitten malware? So let's go find that. So let's go filter, let's go find by kitten. And we can see in the public, process was terminated, CMD. I believe it's also going to be in startup. Or is it going to be different? Odin. All right, so C users public kitten.exe. So let's go to C users public kitten.exe. Let's see what this does. Run key named. All right, we need to find the, what is it? Run key named. Okay, so I believe we're gonna look at C user public. And is there more? Of course there is. Nice. Kitten.exe. Run key. I need a run key. Which possibly means I'm going to be looking at system event ID 13 events. 13. And then let's go find kitten. I could be wrong. Let me look again just to make sure. No, hold up. C Windows after before. Okay, after before. So let me look for find kitten, and let me do this. See reg.exe. Okay, now we see the register events. Nice. Reg add basket. I see basket mentioned run, so I believe that is going to be our key, run key, because I see that it's mentioned, because I see the registry that is mentioned, and yes, process creation events, kitten.exe. So let's see if the run key that we see here, basket, because we see the path, HKCU software, Microsoft Windows current version run, basket. And the registry editor tool, reg.exe, is being used to add a run key that is called basket that is associated with C users public kitten.exe. Let's see if that is the answer. Basket. Nice. Teach them persisting in basket. You can see here is our answer. All right, moving on to task 6, impact and threat detection recap. Need for persistence. In the previous tasks, you have learned how threat actors can remain active on systems, but why would they need it? Why not just steal the data and exit the system before detection? There can be multiple reasons, but the main ones are: first, you can add the host to a botnet and use it for further attacks, like how the Kraken botnet combines crypto miner, data stealer, and C2 capabilities. They can spy on the victim as part of a state-sponsored campaign. And 3, they can use the victim as an entry point to the network. Breaching could take months, like in the case right here. And also, all these hyperlinks, I highly recommend checking them out. You can click on them and you will learn more about them, which is awesome. Active Directory and ransomware. Let's take a closer look at the third point here. In most cases, a Windows network means a large Active Directory. If you don't know what Active Directory is, don't worry. There's a TryHackMe room to help you better understand the Active Directory, but just know that Microsoft Active Directory is the backbone of the corporate world. It simplifies the management of devices and users within a corporate environment. Like I said, if you're wanting to learn more about Active Directory, highly recommend checking out this room, and it is completely free, which is awesome. Yeah, highly recommend checking this out. Yeet. That brings its own attacks, detections, and threats, the main one being ransomware. Ransomware scares businesses the most. Why? Because it can bring entire companies to a halt, as it did for McLaren hospitals, affecting 743,000 patients. Imagine this. Just imagine seeing your servers encrypted, data stolen, and ransom notes automatically printed on all office printers, which unfortunately we can see here. Alright, now threat detection recap. Active Directory and ransomware are complex topics, but all complex attacks start from a simple single breach. In the Windows Threat Detection rooms, you explored how breaches begin, how the attackers steal data, and how they remain undetected for years. You're now ready to use the acquired knowledge to detect and stop the attacks before ransomware causes a disastrous impact, preferably right after initial access. And here's a quick recap of what you learned so far with all the Windows Threat Detection rooms, which I have each walkthroughs as well. Alright, we're going to answer the questions below. What is the biggest threat to most corporate Windows networks? We can see here that ransomware was mentioned, scares businesses the most, and the main one being ransomware. So ransomware is going to be our answer. And in which stage is it best to detect and stop the attack? It is going to be initial access, because that is how attacks start, from initial access. Right here. Alright, now task 7, conclusion. In this room, you explored command and control, persistence, and impact. 3 tactics observed during advanced attack campaigns. You learned why attackers establish T2 channels, how they maintain long-term access using scheduled attacks, startup folders, services, and run keys, and how to detect these actions through Windows event logs. You're now better equipped to recognize the signs of compromise and prepared to detect complete attack chains in SIM or directly on the host. We hope you enjoyed the Windows Threat Detection journey. Yay! Answer the questions below. If you completed the room, no answers needed. Correct answer. Alright, let me terminate the room. Alright, terminate machine. Alright. I hope you all enjoyed my Windows Threat Detection 3 Premium Room walkthrough. Here's some of the resources that we mentioned in the room, which can be seen here. Which you can see here. Awesome. I also highly recommend checking out the other hyperlinks and other resources mentioned in the Windows Threat Detection 3 room as well. And overall, hope you enjoyed my walkthrough. Have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next walkthrough. Peace.